All right, everyone, welcome back to this week's session of Banks Wants You to Know, your latest source for financial discipline and literacy. So we just sprung forward an hour, and our bodies are trying to make that adjustment. I know I personally slept a little longer than I originally wanted to today, but the good news is we gained more sunlight for the next 8 months. Speaking of sunlight, for the next few weeks, kind of want to zoom in and shine a light on our pay schedules and something I'm calling the Payday Series. Now, we've talked about some of the basics of money management and discipline in the past couple of videos, so you can find some time to check those out. So let's apply some of those principles to our money. With this focus on our pay schedules, because there are various ones that we use depending on where we're employed, I plan to give some tips to managing our money for us to make it standing tall to each payday instead of crawling to it. Hopefully, as we make some adjustments to how we approach our pay, just like how our bodies are doing this through this transitional period, we can keep our head above water and take steps to getting rid of that living paycheck to paycheck theme. I do understand that sometimes what we are getting paid just isn't enough to make it in this world, especially when supporting our families or dealing with the constant rise in prices at grocery stores or in housing. But there are some ways we can make it with some slight changes in our money habits or our money usage that will hopefully lead us to that contentment that we're seeking until that time comes for a raise or a promotion or a new job or an opportunity that will generate higher pay for us. So today, we're going to start off with probably the toughest pay schedule there is, getting paid once a month. I'm sure you all can agree with that. So yes, you get what seems to be like a large lump sum when that monthly payday does come, but it becomes a challenge to make sure that you're able to maintain those funds throughout the next 30 days. A lot of things can happen in those 30 days that can cause funds to go away, leaving one to wonder how they're going to get by until the next payday. It's definitely a tough feeling to have. I've made a job switch almost a year ago, which led me from going to getting paid semi-monthly to now once monthly, so I can experience this firsthand. I tried going into this thinking like, oh, this ain't no thing, I can handle this, no problem. But it was such a drastic change, and I was definitely forced to make some financial adjustments. So these tips that I will share today are mainly those that are personal to me, that I've had to do to avoid doing that continuous crawl to the finish line or to the end of the month, that is, and to, use these tips to better set me and my family up for the future. And I hope these tips that I share today will help you as well if you're in the same shoes that I'm in. In last week's video, I mentioned spending limits regarding credit cards, so check that video out if you haven't already. Today, I'm back with a recommendation also about spending limits as it pertains to getting that once a month check. Once you've identified what bills need to be paid, what obligations need to be handled, and that amount of money you're going to save, remember, pay yourself first. You'll have some money left over, hopefully, but it has to last you the whole month. So how about we break it down to using a certain amount per week, using that discretionary income, or what I've been calling free money. In this manner will assure you that it will last you throughout the month. If this isn't possible for your finances, maybe you can narrow it down to placing a spending limit on a specific item or an activity per week. For example, maybe you're in favor of going to the grocery store once a week. If so, then maybe you can come up with an amount that you can stick to, not going over each week that you make that grocery trip. In this manner, so if for some reason the rest of your funds are spent in a particular month, at least you'll have some funds remaining for a necessity, because hey, we all gotta eat. Yes, this does take discipline and it can feel restrictive, but I believe that it's necessary, helpful, and beneficial in the long run. An example of that coming later. So on to the next tip. I believe this is just really a part of our human nature. Like as soon as we know that we're gonna have some new money in our account, it's like an injection of new energy into us. The majority of us may have already started, making plans with the money before we get it. I know I definitely do it. But the problem I run into, however, or maybe you all run into as well, is that the plans sometimes can exceed that monthly budget. So I wind up putting some of those planned purchases on hold until further notice. Like if I make a lot of purchases at once, usually on day one of getting paid, what will I have left for the other estimated 29 days? So we have to make this money last, which is why I recommend us to not be in a rush to spend this money as soon as that direct deposit hits or when that check hits your hand for the paper check people. It's almost like that saying of don't let that money burn a hole in your pocket because, once you get it, it's gone out your pocket. And also I've mentioned the practice of slowing down several times on this channel. This is one of the main ways slowing down will help us. You may not even have to put purchases that you want to make on hold, but waiting to make a few of them, until after a week or two can be more beneficial. And this is like spreading out your purchases throughout the month. And that's a more efficient way of spending versus, spending a lot on the front end, leading to struggling in that last week or two or crawling until that next payday. This method is a meticulous and a careful way of managing your money. And now for the last tip of this session, this will focus on the necessary things that we use to live. Now the other tips, I saw it as it focusing on our wants, but this one will focus on our needs. And these needs are bills, and they should be scheduled to be paid as early as possible, likely through auto pay, which is something I mentioned in an earlier video that I like to do. So when I started making my adjustments after my pay schedule changed, one of the first things I had to do was change due dates for my bills. So for example, my car insurance payment was originally due in the middle of the month, I think on the 15th, if I'm not mistaken. But to better accommodate my finances, I had to move it to the 1st of every month. Now there are several advantages to making these adjustments. One is the sooner your obligations are paid, the sooner they can be checked off your list. Another is, once the bills are paid, then you'll have a clear idea of how much money you'll have left to spend for the month. And lastly, if all or most of your bills are set up to be paid on the same day as you get paid or just a few days after that deposit, instead of them being spread out, those pay dates being spread out across the month, then it avoids that mistake of a payment being missed because you ran out of money before it can get paid. Or a surprise or an oops can go the other way too. Maybe you had plans to do something fun, but then you forgot about, this big bill is coming out in the middle of the month. Then it wipes out a chunk of your money and now your plans are doomed. So using this structure can avoid these things from happening as well. Now, I'm sure we all wish that bills didn't exist, but they are necessary for living, and I believe we can all still make our money moves with them as long as there is a strategy and a structure to paying them. Now, if this interests you, speak with your service providers on how you can move your due dates to better accommodate your finances. All right, so this first example, I want to go back over this first tip of setting a weekly spending limit. And let's just say, okay, you got paid around $4,000. Say your salary is $4,000 a month. And then after all of your bills are paid, everything's taken care of, you're left with $600 to spend. Got all the bills paid, left with $600 to spend. And if there's 4 weeks, generally 4 weeks in a month, divide 600 by 4, that's going to give you a license to spend $150 each week. Now, let's say things happen or something that you want to do in week 2 that may require a little bit more than $150. Maybe it requires $200. And we can be flexible with this. It doesn't have to be as restrictive as just sticking to 150. But let's say if you did want to move it up because you have something to do in the second week of the month, then that's fine. Then that'll leave you with $50 left to spend in week 4. And then with the example I was giving about groceries, you can use it. You can use it the same way. Say you got about a family of 4, family of 5, and your grocery bill with as much as prices are rising up to $600. You want to go to the grocery store every week. You got hungry kids, or you got kids that will eat up the snacks, eat up the food pretty quickly. So you got to go every week. You can set these same limits to where, okay, at least when the end of the month comes, then I will still have some left over to make up that last grocery trip to sustain you all to get to the next month. Then there's also some flexibility you can make with this as well. You can bring one of them down, but as I talked about with our seesaw method, if one goes up, then in another week, an amount will have to go down. Now, getting paid once a month is much easier on the organization issuing the payment than it is on the employees. That's only one time a month for them to do their payroll processes, while others may have to do it multiple times a month, depending on the pay schedule. But although it can be a challenge to manage funds for an entire month, I know we can find ways to make it happen for ourselves and for our families. Managing this monthly lump sum takes discipline, self-control, or patience, and being proactive and even some creativity. A wise person once said, patience is a virtue, and it can apply to our money as well. Now, these first 2 tips deal with pacing ourselves when it comes to our money usage, so that patience that I explained earlier can lead to making greater money decisions. And that leads me to the verse of the session, which comes from James chapter 1, verses 2 through 4, and it reads, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, when you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work, so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything." And James is one of my favorite books in the Bible. And as I reflect on this verse, I think about how many of our trials in our lives come from the lack of money to either do what we want to do, or to pay up or catch up on a bill. And that stuff leads to a lack of joy, leading to depression, or even some life-changing events such as like repossession, foreclosure, or bankruptcy. And for those who have experienced getting once a month pay for an extended amount of time, like a number of years, 10, 20, 30 years, they can probably say that they've had their share of money trials due to the length of time between paydays, and then having something unexpected happen that may have derailed them. But no matter the days between pay, God can and will sustain and provide for us. All we have to do is believe in Him, believe that our trials will work out for our good, and persevere through our circumstances by applying God's wisdom to our finances. With God working on the inside of us, we can never lack anything. And I'd like to take this time to thank you all for checking out this week's session of Banks Wants You to Know, where financial discipline equals financial success. And please like, subscribe, follow, or share this video if I've said something that you will consider useful in your financial journey. Tune in next week to hear something that I want you to know. Thank you all, and class is dismissed.